to put my medal on. Whose blood to spill, I don't know. Whose side I'm on. Two armies are coming at me. Their flags and weapons look the same. One tells the truth, the other's lying. And they're both calling my name. This is how villains are made. This is how villains are made. Ooh, no one ever starts that way. But this is how villains are made. Time to put my name.
Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio is set to be arraigned following his arrest in Washington Monday night. Tarrio is suspected of setting fire to a Black Lives Matter banner stolen.
I'm not going to cry about a group of people that don't give a crap about their constituents.
They call themselves Western chauvinists. They're certainly male-dominated.
And this right here shows you the power when we, the right wing, unite.
The leader of the Proud Boys makes a stunning revelation.
I am a Western chauvinist who refuses to apologize for creating the modern world.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
Breathe fire like a dragon killing demons. Go hard, yeah, we gotta seize the day. Hellfire raining down upon my bank. Well, if you're gonna bring the heat, we can bury it today. We all been lost, we all been cold. Everyone rise to our brethren code. We got your back, we all been low. Let's all rise to the brethren.
But in no other nation do people enjoy greater freedom, opportunity, and prosperity than here in the United States of America.
USA! 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 USA!
Do you condemn those people? Can you say that right now?
Okay, I can't say that because I think
Why not?
condemn is a very strong word, and I think it's a little bit too strong. Because I'm the head of the organization and I know exactly what we planned and what we didn't plan, and we did not coordinate to assault the Capitol.
Enrique Tarrio is the Proud Boys' current leader. And over the past 4 years, he's seen the group grow from a few guys in a bar to thousands of members across the United States.
Right now, the most important thing that we have going for us is that we all share the same belief. The belief that we should put America first. America first! America first! Rule change! Rule change! We're all Proud Boys! We're all Proud Boys! Fuck Antifa! Fuck Antifa! Fuck Antifa!
And I already fucked that up. Welcome to another episode of the NBLE podcast. I'm your host, Enrique Tarrio. On our last episode, we had a very divisive guest, someone that I enjoyed sparring with. She lost. Inevitably, she lost. But today's episode is not going to be very divisive. It's going to be with a friend of mine that, funny as it may be, we met in prison for the events of January 6th. His name's Dan Wilson. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you having me.
It's always good to have you, Dan. I kind of want to start at the beginning where we met. We were in Grady County Detention Center in Oklahoma, and we were both in the same pod for about 3 days, and we didn't even know that we were both January 6th defendants at the time. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even know that your name was Dan at the time. I thought your name was Tim because we shared a mutual friend that we were talking to back and forth on the phone. And we kind of, the last day, because I got moved, the last day we went ahead and like kind of, we're like, wait, you're January 6th, or we did the kind of like the Spider-Man thing. Yeah, I'm happy to have you on, Dan. It's a pleasure. That day was actually amazing to me because I hadn't seen another January 6er. But go ahead, share that experience there in Grady County.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you come in and, dude, you had that beard and stuff. Because I mean, I know who you are, and I've been to DC for like the November and December, lovely trips in my opinion. So, I mean, I knew who you were, but yeah, I just didn't recognize you with the beard. And then when you come up and said something to me, you said, Tim, I was like, no. And then we figured out we had the mutual acquaintance. You said your name was Enrique. And I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, for real? I was like, what's up, man?
Yeah. And we both, I think we got moved.
You were,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's just for the audience, there's a slight audio delay on here, but I think we got moved that day. Was I right? Or the very next day or something like that?
Yeah, it was that night. I mean, it was just a few hours, it was that afternoon. We figured out who each other were. And then, they called the chain that night and we took a bus ride together.
You remember the conversation that we had? We were already talking about what we were going to do because this was just a little bit before the election. I was getting transferred out. And we were talking about, when Trump wins, what are we going to do when we get out? And it's crazy because all those things that we said, and I think this is a very important piece of the puzzle here. We got out. We both got out on. Did you get out on the 20th or the 21st?
It was like 1:30 in the morning, so I got out that night. They got me out of my cell at like 11:30.
Okay, yeah, kind of like me. I got out on the 21st. But the amazing thing about your story doesn't come. That wasn't the end for you, was it, Dan?
No, unfortunately not. Dabney Friedrich decided to send me back to prison. So I ended up doing another 7.5 months. And I got out on November 14th last month, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware.
Let's get into that a second, because I think that is a big portion of Dan Wilson's story. So you get out and you're happy and you're like, finally, and then what happens? What happens after you get out?
About 3 days later, they didn't have a way of contacting me, but they contacted the person that was down as my emergency contact on all my paperwork. And it was probation, U.S. probation and parole. And they left a name and number for me to contact and basically told my people that I still had time to serve. So I immediately called the lawyers. And to be honest, I guess I can talk about it now. I just grabbed my truck keys, dude, and I walked out the door. I wasn't trying to run and hide, but I wasn't going to let them find me.
You weren't going to make it easy for them.
No, sir. No, sir.
So, but here, because obviously I know the story, but the audience doesn't know the story. Why would you have to serve more time if you just got pardoned by the president of the United States, the leader of the free world?
I mean, that's the messed up part. Basically it was, charges that they gave me when they raided my house. They threw more charges at me that weren't technically related to that day. So that was the whole thing. It was the verbiage of the part and the way it was written. The debate was over the words related to.
Okay.
And the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, they all concurred, just like with Daniel Ball, Jeremy Brown, Guy Ruffett, the list goes on and on, really. They were covered by the pardon, but I wasn't. Legally speaking, it makes no sense. It's either an all or nothing situation. So basically, that was the debate, and it's no different than what we've been going through for, the whole process of this. Okay. Political. And I just had a judge that decided, she wanted her pound of flesh, and she got it to a certain extent, because I ended up going back on April 2nd and doing another 7.5 months before President Trump saved me again.
So correct me if I'm wrong here. So January 6th happens. They come raid your house because of January 6th, right? They come to pick you up, and they find firearms, right?
Correct.
But the whole reason that they got there was because of because they came to get you for January 6th. So if they didn't come get you, they wouldn't have gone into your house, into your home. So President Trump pardons you, and they go ahead and they tell you, well, you got to serve more time because these charges have nothing to do with January 6th. But they do have everything to do with January 6th because it's an unreasonable search warrant, right? Already. And the verbiage on the pardon itself also instructs the DOJ and berates the DOJ, the previous DOJ, the Biden DOJ, for what they did. So you come out, right? Does the DOJ, when you go ahead and you say, no, this is the pardon applies, does the DOJ fight you on that?
No, the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., the DOJ were in concurrence that I was covered, and the judicial basically just stepped over, that line and disagreed. Yeah. So the courts, the judge, Dabney Friedrich, she just basically overrode the U.S. Attorney's Office and, had me locked back up. I mean, to me, it was amazing because I really thought it would be okay. It's the politics, and like Janine Pirro, this is a good one. Janine Pirro, the new after Ed Martin, because Ed Martin, concurred that I was covered. Janine Pirro kind of washed her hands of it. When we appealed the decision and went to the appeals court, she basically wrote a letter to the appeals court and said that she has no position. She's not going to defend the judge, and she's not going to write a motion or whatever to concur with the defense team. And the appeals court literally appointed a private attorney, which is actually Obama's old AG. I forget his last name now, but Eric something. But Obama's AG has a private firm in D.C., and the appeals court literally appointed that private attorney in that office to defend the judge's position against us in appeals court.
I've had mixed signals from this DOJ in our case, because shortly after you got picked up again, we put in a motion to dismiss in our case, and it wasn't Ed Martin. It was prosecutor Jocelyn Ballantyne. And for those that have been watching my show for the past week, Jocelyn Ballantyne is the new prosecutor for this J6 pipe bomber case. And she was the head of pretty much the entire Capitol Siege Division for the DOJ. She shouldn't have a job. These are things that should happen. I couldn't be happier I couldn't be happier with the appointment of Ed Martin. I wish he had more power in some cases. I know that he's worked very hard. But back to your story, Dan. So you go back to prison. Where do you go back, by the way? What prison did you go to?
They sent me back to where I was, FCI Beckley in West Virginia,
Okay.
which is like a medium high. It's run like a USP. Man, you talk about a violent place. And, now that you mentioned, I'd like to bring up something real quick on that is the BOP, I think, did me wrong too, because I literally had 3 security points and should have been at a camp, and they gave me a public safety override for my criminal history that's 30 years old. So I was surrounded by hardcore gangsters, MS-13. They're fighting and stabbing each other and stuff all the time. So, I mean, they put me in a bad position.
That is, I'll get the name, but that is the counter-terrorist unit, the CTU of the BOP, which I found out recently is that what did that to us, because I had the same issue. I was in a medium, and I literally had camp points. Obviously, I knew I wasn't supposed to go to camp because of my sentence length, but at least put me in a low until I get under the 10-year mark. But I was put in a medium. Same thing, super violent, but the prison you were in, I've heard horror stories about. So you're sitting here. Let's go with when the inmates, when you walk in, because this is a very small place, right? Everybody knows each other, right? So when you walk back in, how did the other inmates go ahead and weren't they like, wait, what the fuck? Weren't you just pardoned?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Even the staff, I do have to put that disclaimer out. I don't like to embellish. As Trump country, nobody did anything wrong. Everybody stayed professional. Want to make sure that's clear. But yeah, I mean, everybody was just like, what the hell is going on? Why are you here? And even when I went to get teamed, the computer did not understand. It's, why is this man here? He has a presidential pardon. We literally had to do paperwork by hand to get everything straight.
I'm actually going to get the name of the guy at the BOP because we were just talking about that just yesterday. As a matter, I was talking to Barry about that yesterday. So then you sit there. What did you feel like? Was it like hopeful that things would get fixed? Was it like, oh, I'm going to have to do this entire illegal sentence? What did you feel?
Well, I mean, of course, I wasn't happy about the situation. And at first, I kept my spirits up pretty good because I just felt like it would be fixed. So many people, George Palace, and the people he was talking to, inside the DOJ, the FBI thing, and, the pardon office, we were hearing all positive things. We're going to get this fixed. We're going to get this fixed. So, the first couple months, I kind of kept my composure, but after about 4 months, I just thought it was over. That's why I started reaching out to try to do, a social media campaign and get people to start calling the pardon office, start calling the DOJ, start calling the White House. And I knew I was never really forgotten because the support's been amazing, right? I'm so blessed, and I'm really humbled to, my friends, the Patriot community. Everybody made sure I was took care of and all that stuff. But, I just felt left behind. And that became after about 4 months, it became, very difficult. And to kind of expound on that too, I did do time when I was young. I mean, I did quite a few years in Kentucky state prisons. So that helped me know how to navigate inside the fence. But at the same time, the situation is different. I'm older. It's a young man's game. Yep. So it was really difficult emotionally and mentally, like I said. And then after that 4 months, man, I was just like, what the hell And I mean, I got to the point where I just thought, yeah, I'm going to have to do all this time. And my mother's getting elderly, and that was my big concern. That she wouldn't be there by the time I got out, and I need to be there to try to take care of her when she needs it.
Of course. Now, Barry just sent me the name. His name is Joshua Kloeb. He's the head of the BOP's counterterrorist unit, because obviously we're terrorists at this point. And he was previously out of, get this, CTU, the counterterrorist unit in West Virginia. So this person is in charge of all the moves. I was moved. By the time I saw you in Oklahoma, which I believe was like September or October of 24, I was already moved to like 30 something different locations. And this person, Joshua Kloeb with the BOP, was the person that's in charge of all these situations where they put us in mediums and we're supposed to be in camps where they call it administrative transfer, and it's really what it is diesel therapy. So you said something. You said, "Oh, it's been 4 months," and you're kind of like, "All right, fuck it, I'm gonna have to be here." How long did it take to get you out, Dan? Dan, you with me?
It took 7.5 months. I went back in on April 2nd, and I got released on November 14th.
Okay. So all this time, there's a whole bunch of people, and we got to give it to Shelly. Shelly has been, I think, the tip of the spear when it comes to releasing Dan Wilson. Everybody's done their part. I'm part of group chats that were focused on you specifically, because what we like, some of these groups, including myself, we like focusing on one defendant, right? I know that there's many, but we liked focusing on one defendant. And with you, you were a focus because what happened to you was ridiculous. And in your case, first off, I think felon in possession of a firearm is unconstitutional to begin with. And I think the Supreme Court is going to agree with me on that in this coming session. But let's go, now that we have, I'm so happy that you're out. And we'll talk about what the future for Dan Wilson holds. Dan, I'm going to put something on the screen because there's two of them. We're looking for them. Which one of these two is your fund? Is it Dan Wilson or Dan Wilson Freedom Fund?
It's Dan Wilson, the one with my picture with me wearing the Free the J6er shirt.
Okay. All right.
Not the one with Flynn.
Got it.
That was the one. Condemn USA. I got to give a shout out to them. They've been behind me, Trina Sevens and everybody. They've been behind me for years now. I got a shout out to them. They've been outstanding. And quick little story made me pop in my head because of that picture right there. But that picture right there was at the rest area coming down 70 in Maryland out of West Virginia on the way to D.C. And I was on my way to my final sentencing. They took me into custody at my final sentencing. And anybody that was on release, pretrial release, and got taken into custody at sentencing will know what I'm talking about. If you have people in the courtroom, you can take your suit and stuff off and give it to them as long as you got clothes on underneath to walk out in. So I wore a pair of shorts, and I wore that shirt underneath my suit. So after Dabney Friedrich hammered me in court, I took my suit and stuff off and handed it to my people and walked out of that courtroom with that shirt on.
Oh, wow. Good. So here's another thing about your release, Dan. So did you expect it? Was it just like was this something that you were communicating with somebody where you knew it was about to hit, or did somebody just call you and tell you, "Hey, pack your shit"?
Yeah, we were actually locked down, so I had no idea it was coming. It happened fast. Trump signed the order around 5. They had me out of my cell at 7:30. I was processed out at 8:30, and I had to wait a couple hours in the lobby for my ride to get there. So it was, again, I experienced it twice. You know, it was just a knock on the door, and you're going home.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing feeling. The officer come knocked on the door. He's like, "Pack your stuff, Wilson." And I was like, "What do you mean, pack my stuff? It's 7:30 on a Friday night. You know what I mean? Where am I going?" And I had been complaining about trying to get sent to a low, because I had I had camp points. So I was trying to get out of that place and get to a low. So the cop comes up and he knocks on the door, and I'm like, "Where am I going?" And he's like, "Just pack your stuff." And I was like, "Where am I going?" And then finally he cracked a smile and he says, "Your pardon come through." Man, I ain't gonna do. My knees went weak. My hands come up. I just like, praise Jesus. My cellie went nuts. The whole dorm went nuts. Everybody knew I wasn't supposed to be there. The inmates in that pod, they looked out for me. I have to be honest about that. They protected me.
Yeah. Yeah. As a J6er, you feel people, the left always says, "Oh, wait till they get in prison. They're going to have such a bad time." And they don't know that the inmates, the rest of the inmates, treat us very, very well. The thing with it is, what they don't understand is whether those inmates are guilty of their crimes or they got over sentenced or whatever the case may be. They blame the government for being there, no matter what, right? And then what they see that we allegedly did was fight the government. Right, fight the same government that put them in there. So they're very supportive of what we do. And I know you said this, but that you felt very good. But how good did you feel, like not knowing that it was going to happen?
I mean, it's like getting hit in the forehead with a brick. You know what I mean? I'm laying in the cell watching a movie on the tablet and, thinking I got another 3 years to do. And, they cracked the door. I mean, it was, and at that point, I didn't know, that I gotten a second pardon. I mean, that to me, that's just so amazing. I'm humbled. I know I'm blessed. I'm not sure I'm worthy, but I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful,
Dan, for sure you're worthy of this pardon. And I want to bring up another point about this pardon. I think this is a record of some sort, right? I know that you've gone through this, but you've been pardoned twice in less than a couple months. Is there like some type of record that you've set here with this?
Yes, sir. As far as we know, I've had a lot of people. I haven't investigated myself, but a lot of people have looked into it, and apparently, I'm the first person in the history of the United States to get 2 presidential pardons.
Well, congrats. Actually, do you have the signed copy? Because yours is an individual. Obviously, mine is part of that grouping, so I don't have it like an individual Enrique Tarrio with a President Trump signature. Do you have a President Trump signed pardon?
I do.
Oh, God, I envy you so much right now. I'll probably
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I'll probably go back. Hey, send me back for about a month so I could get a pardon. A month to us that we're in there for such a long time. A month ain't shit. I don't want to do no prison time, but a month ain't shit. Dan, so let's go back in time because we've talked about what's happened to you after. Let's roll back to election time in 2020. What made you want to go to DC on January 6th?
I'd been active at that point for a couple years. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, so we dealt with the riots in my town too. It was the political violence. I've never been into politics. I've never been left or right. Being from the streets and being a convicted felon at such a young age, it didn't matter, Democrat, Republican, or whatever. Nobody ever, they didn't give a shit about me, so I didn't give a shit about them. I just worked, built my life. When I come out of prison, I worked really hard at that. I'm an electrician. I hold a master's license at this point, over 60,000 hours experience. So for me, the political violence is what got me activated off the couch. And then I started, meeting different groups, like the Oath Keepers, Three Percenters, Proud Boys, because I felt that calling. I was involved, to go to the school board meetings. I would do security, for businesses or whatever during the protests and such like that. That's, to me, it didn't matter if you were BLM, Antifa, or if you were a law enforcement officer trying to shut down a mom talking at a school board meeting. It was about the Constitution. I was against the COVID mandates and all that crap. So January 6th was no different than anything else I'd done. I was there for the purpose of protecting people.
Okay. And Dan, so I didn't expect, I expected the same thing. We went to do two things. We went to go have fun, listen to the president, and then we went to go protect people also. But obviously, the monster that is the Biden DOJ turned it into something more nefarious. Guys that are watching, please go. I'm going to put the link up at the comments. So after you're done watching, go to the comment section of this tweet on the Warboy Studios or my personal account. There's a Give Send Go link that's going to be there. That's for Dan. And we're trying to get Dan back on his feet. Dan's a hero. He has gone through the ringer twice, not once, twice. And he's stuck it to the man. Dan, I'll say this, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in a cold, damp, moldy cell where the Biden administration put you. How does it feel to win? Because right now you did win. You did win against this Judge Friedrich, that the DOJ did not oppose at the beginning, did not oppose your release at all. They actually supported your release. I think there was some case law there that could have been done a little bit differently, but they still agreed with you, and this judge decided to put you in. I hope this judge is angry. I hope she's angry. I hope she's impeached. And a possibility, I think, that there should be criminal charges against some of these judges. How does it feel to be vindicated twice?
It's awesome, man. It's awesome. Like I said, I'm humbled. I know I'm so blessed, and I played a long game too. And not all the lawyers always agreed with my thought process. Not all our friends or whatever agree with my thought process on how I kind of combined all the charges into one, and I got forced into a corner, right? I really didn't want to plead guilty to anything, but I played a long game, and my long game was President Trump winning and freeing us. Yeah. So, not that, I like to consider myself fairly intelligent, but I'm just an old trailer park kid, so to speak. I'm a street kid, dude. Yeah. And although the process took longer or whatever, it was a David and Goliath of, what we were all up against, So to hang in there, not everybody did, but I stood on my morals. I stood on my principles. I did what I thought was right. I had a little bit of survivor's guilt not being in the gulag with you guys, being on release, but I took that responsibility and I spoke out. I helped people as best I could financially. I spoke out. I didn't crawl underneath the rock. Of course, like so many others, they tried to pressure me to talk to the feds wanted to talk to me about people and organizations and such, and I just wouldn't do it. That's why I got hammered. But, morals and principles, my name, my honor, man, my word, I learned decades ago, that's all you got. And I'll never relinquish that.
And I thank you for that. I thank you for that, Dan, because a lot of people weren't a small amount of people weren't as strong as you were, and as strong as the rest of the January 6ers were, and they caved in. You didn't. Again, the strategy of pleading guilty is, I've said this before in the show, is a strategy. The thing is to be able to get back in the fight as fast as possible. I knew that we had a very corrupt jury, and in your case and in my case, actually in all these January 6 cases, we saw the judges, we saw the corruption in DC, and we saw it firsthand, and we're able to talk about it like nobody else can. So in closing here, I want to do two things. What does the future for Dan Wilson bring? What does it look like?
Well, I'm taking a little time, try to get my head right, get my feet back underneath of me, and you mentioned the Give, Send, Go. Anybody can help out. I really appreciate it. Just to help out a little bit. I feel like I've been a good teammate throughout this process. But, cancel culture doesn't work on me, man. I'm a master electrician. Society needs me. I worked really hard, over the decades to build a name, build a reputation. So I have full confidence that, I'll get back on my feet. I'll find a job. This is a bad time of year in construction to be trying to find a job, holidays and winter and things of that nature. But I've always had a refuse to lose attitude. I've done this before. I walked out of prison with nothing but the shirt on my back when I was 27 years old, and I made a life for myself. So I have full confidence in myself that I'll be able to make that happen again.
Yeah. And then the last portion right here is if President Trump were to listen to this podcast, and I think he does because we have a great network, what would you tell him?
President Trump, I appreciate you, sir. I really do. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story and investigate and make the decision to grant me this, I don't know if you call it a second chance, maybe a second chance. And I hold a great responsibility in my heart and in my mind. And I won't let you down, sir. I'm going to continue to fight for this country, and I will not disappoint you, sir. Thank you.
You said that you were given a second chance, or possibly a second chance. Dan, I think that you were just given a second chance, and the system wanted to claw you back in. And through the president of the United States and his team and your advocates, I think that we clawed you back into freedom. I think that there's so many people to thank, but I want to personally thank you. I was going through a rough time because I was bouncing back and forth everywhere. And January 6th, you said something else. You're like, oh, well, I wish I was in the gulag with you. The gulag was besides the fact that of the conditions, the gulag was great because there was a brotherhood there. And I didn't have that brotherhood because I was isolated. They transferred me everywhere after I got out of the gulag, and I was bouncing back and forth. And to find a fellow J6er and a fellow brother, it was cool because, and it was only for, I think, again, I my memory is cloudy, but I think it was only for a couple hours. I think we found out that we were both in the same unit, and then that very night, we had to sit downstairs in that disgusting holding cell. It was actually a shoe. Together, and we shared our experiences. You shared your experiences as an electrician. I told you that I'm certified in low voltage here in South Florida. I don't think anymore. I think that expired. But for the most part, we shared that those experiences, including our experiences of going through this weaponized government. So, Dan, I appreciate you so much. Any last words for the audience?
I appreciate you too, brother. Yeah, like you just mentioned, God bless President Trump, all the advocates. you start naming names, you forget names, and there's so many. We could talk for 2 hours, and I probably would still forget somebody, you know. So just everybody out there that's been in my corner, been really in all the J6ers corners, you know, in this battle from the beginning. We appreciate you, and I mean, I could say it all day, man. I'm humbled, I'm blessed, and I'm ready to try to make America great again.
Amen. Amen. And as a last ask to you guys, go to Give, Send, Go, type in Dan Wilson, but also it's going to be in the comments of this tweet that you guys are watching, and give generously, dude. Anything that you can give, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100, $1,000 to help Dan get back on his feet. Dan has set a precedent. Dan is a hero. And I would appreciate you guys to go ahead and help Dan out in this situation. With that, Dan, again, you have a brother here 24/7. I know I'm very busy, but my phone's always open to you. Give me a call. If I don't answer, shoot me a text. And to the audience out there, thank you for watching another episode of the NBLE podcast. Dan, stay with us through the outro.
Load up on guns and bring your friends. It's fun to lose and to pretend she's overboard and self-assured. Oh no, I know a dirty word. Hello.
Prosecutor said Ethan Nordine was the undisputed leader of the group that day as they tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power.
And FBI agents arrested Proud Boys' former national chairman Enrique Tarrio at this home in Miami. By 2 this afternoon, he was in federal court.
Here we are now, entertainers. I feel stupid and contagious. Here we are